Grattan Institute Energy Program Director Tony Wood has dismissed Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews' claim that renewable energy is more reliable than coal-fired power. Daniel Andrews, Christy, was just being a smarty pants, wasn't he?
I think he is. I think Daniel Andrews is a pretty clever guy. He is in between a rock and a hard place on this. Labor government in Victoria has gone all out on renewable energy, and they've done so because the Greens are on the march in safe Labor seats to the north of Melbourne. One of those councils, the most activist council, the City of Yarra. If you think what Daniel Andrews has said, the City of Yarra has a 2024 climate emergency plan which includes 100% zero emission, with 16,000 small businesses in the City of Yarra to have to foot the bill of going towards
shut down the Victorian economy.
Energy and zero transport. So that's the constituency that Daniel Andrews is seeking to pander to when he says these words. And of course, we all would like to see more renewable energy. We all want it to be commercialised. But I think at this stage, it's probably not appropriate to say it can take the place of baseload coal power.
Yes, exactly. Caleb Bond, he's responsible for the biggest beat-up of the year. How dare he twist the truth on this one?
I know, it's ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing, I mean, trying to imply that renewable energy is the most reliable form of energy, it just beggars belief the way they're carrying on about all of this. I mean, to disuse coal-fired power plants, which provide the base load that we need, and you can see it right across the country. We've suffered from it in South Australia. Just get serious. Forget about the politics. This is stuff we have to be serious about.
Treasurer Josh Frydenberg is considering new tax incentives for businesses for the May budget. This is interesting, Christy. You mentioned businesses suffering under a Greens plan for zero emissions come 2024. Well, the Business Council of Australia has outlined a new plan that they say will kickstart the economy. Is it time we gave business a little bit more of a break, Christy, similar to what the rules are on taxation for companies in the United States?
Look, I'm going to take a different take on this. I think this is the BCA trying to pander a bit to the government. There's a view in Canberra among the coalition that the BCA didn't really go out to bat for the coalition before the election. They were hedging their bets, so they're a bipartisan lobby group. They're entitled to do that, whereas some other groups, perhaps the AI group, did firmly back the coalition. So the BCA is left a little bit in the cold. This proposal that they've released today for reform is essentially a regurgitation of policies the coalition has already done. Tax cuts, well, there's a tax cut agenda for small businesses. BCA is only saying let's extend it to larger businesses.
Yes.
Further depreciation of investment assets. Well, the instant asset write-off has been extended not twice, but I think 3 times. So that's already on the table. They've also said acceleration of infrastructure. Well, the PM announced last week that he was accelerating $4 billion worth of critical infrastructure to start within the next 12 months from the infrastructure agenda, and an industry policy. Now, I think we may argue that there hasn't been a minister in charge of industry since Arthur Sinodinos that was doing any really heavy lifting on that. But that's the only thing that's sort of outstanding that the coalition hasn't done. So it's not groundbreaking for the BCA as a key lobby group to come up with these things. The coalition has already done those things.
You just put the BCA well and truly back in their box there. That is brilliant.
Chris, not that I am an advocate for the BCA. I'm not an advocate for the BCA. I'm not a mouthpiece for the coalition. But I read the paper and I said, well, tick, 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 tick. You know, with all the fees, membership fees you're taking from the major corporates in Australia, this is what you come up with as a research investigative piece.
Yeah. You make a very, very good point. However, they make the point that we can't survive with, you know, productivity and growth under 2%. That won't push up wages one iota, Caleb.
Well, this is true, but I think that the problem in terms of spending and the economy is not to do with what business is doing. It's the average individual. I mean, we as consumers are not spending any money.
No.
Increasingly, we're saving it. And that really, I think, is where we are in trouble. I mean, we've tried to lower interest rates in order to encourage people to spend, to buy homes and so on, it doesn't seem to be doing much at all.
Yeah.
That's the quandary we're in. So, I mean, it's all great for the BCA to carry on about this. As Christy points out, most of it's been done. But if we're going to talk about helping the economy, we have to get individuals to spend, not
Yes.
just businesses.
A little bit of confidence. Look, I think that the last few interest rate reductions have done nothing for confidence in this country. It sort of reaffirms the fact that things are tough, so people keep their hands in their pockets. But anyway, we can talk about that another night. The Institute of Public Affairs, they've done a terrific job. It was published in the Australian today. They've found that many academics who push a left-wing agenda are being funded by us, by taxpayer grants, like that University of Sydney academic Megan McKenzie, who wrote that article published by the ABC that says masculinity is the biggest obstacle to climate change. Christy, enough's enough. Bods like her should get not $1.
Well, look, Chris, as someone who's worked in politics for the last 20 years, masculinity is a barrier to a lot of things that should happen in politics. But, you know, I'm not going to... This completely esoteric...
You don't agree with her, do you, that masculinity is the cause of climate change?
No, of course not. I mean, you can always have a bit of a laugh about, you know, 10 blokes around a cabinet table coming up with an idea that, you know, arguably women would sort of go, why would you think of that? But no, I'm not going to write huge articles for The Australian esoterically talking about feminism and which, you know, I'm an advocate for, but in this way, I mean, this is not relatable to anybody. And as for our universities, they always have been and always will be a bastion of free speech.
Yeah.
There is some, you know, some murky ground in the middle in terms of research grants and so forth, and what we should fund and what people agree with and what they don't. That's going to continue. But I will say this, there has never been a greater example of universities not wanting to upset their own cohort than when the Ramsay Centre for Western Civilisation wanted a home with a major university.
Yeah.
And none of the G8 universities or the second-tier research universities would take up with
Shame
it.
on them.
That is alive and well and doing great work at the University of Wollongong. But that is an example of the politics in universities that we have.